What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at the Ultimate Challenge in Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. Specifically, what I'm doing here is breaking down exactly how to beat the challenge with the most commonly used method, following my own completion of that challenge. In fact, I am the 15th person to have officially completed said challenge, and while I was doing research for this run, again with the most common method of Blood Mage Priest of Skain, while it was easy enough to watch those playthroughs, which are all available on YouTube and everything, and do some research that way, they didn't have any commentary or explanation about what was going on. And while you can certainly puzzle it out if you're familiar enough with the game, I figured I would make that a little bit easier for people. With the point of this video basically being to tell you exactly what people are doing and why, and how they go about ultimately beating this challenge. Now obviously, this is using my own run as a point of reference, and there might be some tiny variations, but at the very least, this is exactly how I did it. With that in mind, if you want to watch the fully unedited, no commentary version, I'll try to post the link to that down in the description below as well. But with no further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, the first thing we're going to do in starting this challenge is clicking the sort of secret button on the main menu that gives you access to this challenge to begin with. This is the small sort of mask at the bottom of that menu. This brings up all of the God challenges. What we're going to do here is simply click the one that says the Ultimate, because that will enable everything we need for the Ultimate, which is effectively all of these different challenges. Now, I'm going to explain these as we go rather than do each one of them individually right here, but the gist of it is we have to play the game solo on the highest difficulty level and on expert mode, which removes a whole bunch of helper features, so you have to just know more about what's happening on screen. And then there's the rest of the actual challenges, but obviously this is Iron Man mode as well, meaning that if you die, it is game over and your save gets wiped. What's more, you cannot save scum at all. That means while you are still alive, opening up the menu and loading back to a previous save on that save file, which is something you can do to avoid dying. For this challenge, that is a disqualifier. And then the more traditional stuff, no cheats, mods, anything like that. But the God challenges, the main ones we want to focus on is that we're basically always going to carry around a torch because our vision cone has been reduced, or our circle, if you will. We have to escort a young girl named Vela, which is a throwback to Pillars 1 actually, but a bit much to explain here. But if she dies, we lose. Meaning, of course, that we have to protect her. All of our armor and weapons that we use can be damaged, and if they take enough damage, they cannot be repaired either, meaning they will be fully and completely destroyed. As we travel about the world map, or just time passes in general, our food will expire. We need that food to travel, so our ship does not revolt against us. The storms on the world map are bigger. We have a time limit to complete the main story objectives. If we enter combat, we cannot leave combat until it is gone. That is to say, we won. Basically, all of the game's numbers are obscured from us, and the list goes on. Basically, we are at an extreme handicap, and that's why this challenge is as difficult as it is. So let's move forward a little bit to character creation. So first up, we are going to play the game in real time with pause. That's a personal preference. I don't know if this can be completed in turn-based. I haven't tried, so something to know, I suppose. But once we get to character creation, we're obviously going to set our character up for success. So a couple of things straight away. We're going to be asked what we want the world state to be coming from Pillars 1. You can either import or choose a preset option here. I'm going to assume if you're watching a video like this, you do not have a custom PoE1 save ready for this. But in either case, either picking a preset or importing a save, it's important that we basically sided with Hylia in the last game. So for us here, that's going to be the first option, Benevolent Soul. This is going to give us access to an item called Hylia's Bounty that we're going to use to get some bonuses. After that, we start making our actual character. We're going to multi-class and be a Blood Mage Wizard and a Priest of Skain. This is going to allow us to ultimately offset most of the God challenges which are hindering us in one way or another. Blood Mage is going to be able to restore their class resources much more easily, which directly opposes Wodika's challenge of making most of your abilities per rest instead of per encounter. And for our initial ability there, we're going to pick up Slicken, which is a level 1 spell. For our second class, we are of course picking the Priest of Skain. For their first ability, we're going to pick up Halt. That's going to be very important later. We're going to use it to position Vela. What's more, Priest of Skain, as just a byproduct of being a Priest of Skain, will at certain levels get certain spells for free. Priest of Skain gets the exact spells that we need at certain levels, basically for free, and then we can just pick the other ones that we need, which is extremely helpful. Now, in addition to that, we do need to, of course, pick our race. We are going to pick Meadowfolk Human. This is basically just for the specific bonuses that we get here. We get an increase to Might, and then Fighting Spirit, which is one of their passives, gives us a bonus to accuracy and damage as our health is low, and as you'll see later, our health is going to be low most of the time, which makes us better off in combat with this specific setup. Now, then we have our attributes. Basically, we're going to max out Might, Intellect, and Perception. We are going to dump Constitution and Resolve. We simply do not need them. We're going to take those down to 4, basically, and then pump up Might to 19, Perception to 18, Intellect to 18, and Dexterity to 14. This is going to give us our exact setup that we need, and in fact, will actually offset most of the things we lose by dumping the other two, while also making sure that we see all the traps so we don't run into them, and making sure we hit as hard as possible and as accurately as possible. The rest of character creation is cosmetic, do what you want there. Now from here we're going to wake up on our ship sailing into the Deadfire from where we were previously, which is where we're going to get the opportunity to equip a few things. It's not incredibly important that we do this, but it gives you a chance at winning the fight we're about to have. It does not actually matter if we win the fight we're about to have because you get washed up on a beach either way. So if you win, great. If you don't worry about it. It is possible by casting some of the priest abilities and stuff that you can win this fight, but we're going to rest right after this anyway, so it doesn't really matter much. Now, in the text event that follows this fight, we're going to save the crate instead of the crew member. That crate has some items we're going to need here in just a moment. And then after that, we wash up on the beach where we're going to be joined by Vela, and our quest for the ultimate will have in fact officially started. Now we're going to do a few things right away here. We're going to loot that crate we just saved. It's going to have an Oil of Allure, a Thieves' Putty, and some gloves. The Thieves' Putty is probably the most important part of this whole thing, but we can also use the other items later as well, so they're going to be coming in handy. Now from there, we're going to loot the initial stuff we see on the beach, mostly the dead bodies, and then we are going to rest. We are going to do that rest with the item Hylia's Bounty that will be in our inventory from the world state option we chose. Hylia's Bounty is going to give us a bonus to things like our skills. That's going to help us pass checks later, because we won't really be resting after this for a very long time. From here, make sure you set stuff up into your quick slots like your Thieves' Putty so you can actually use them when we need them, and to equip a torch to your offhand. Now, if you have the unique torch that you can put in your offhand here, that's great. I think that comes from one of the editions of the game, if I'm not mistaken, but it honestly doesn't matter. Any basic torch will do. We're just using it to see. If you want to equip anything else, also great if you have it, but again, not super necessary. From here, we're going to start clearing out the rest of this beach, looting absolutely everything. We're going to sell it for gold, if nothing else, but also we could use the items. From here, we're actually going to start saving our crew members around the beach, starting by getting up to this ship and saving our first crew member, Arena, I don't know. And then coming up to the campfire, but don't go past the campfire just yet because there are boars up here that we need to stealth for. Then we're going to head up to the sea cave. Now, this part is a little tricky, and if you're new here, you're probably going to die a few times, but it's fine. It's the start of the game. We're going to come up until we start seeing the beetles. We should be in stealth, by the way, and we're going to stealth past these beetles up to this little bridged area. There are 3 skeletons running around. We're actually going to just go ahead and kill them with one of our priest abilities. You can see here that I kind of wait for them to group up, and once they've all kind of grouped up, I engage in combat, and I immediately activate our priest ability that will kill these 3 guys pretty reliably. It's very rare that they will actually not die from this in like 2 hits. So the chance of them even attacking you at all is minimal. Just make sure you're far enough away from the beetles that they don't also attack you. From there, we're going to cross the rest of the bridge, but we're going to be very careful about where we go here. There's still enemies running around, and we don't want to run into any of them. So get back into stealth when you can. Avoid the bats in the next room, but then come up here to where we find Beodul. We're going to disarm all of the traps around him. It's possible to clear them out in dialogue. Do not do that. We want the XP from disarming these traps. Then we're going to talk to Beodul and send him back to the campfire on the beach itself. We're then going to continue looting this chest by disarming these traps and everything, and then we're going to leave. Make sure you get back into stealth to avoid the beetles again, and be very careful. They will spot you very quickly. Something about the beetles, they see just incredibly in Path of the Damned for some reason. It's actually kind of hard to sneak past them. From there, however, we're going to talk to those 2 at the campfire, and then we're going to make our way to the exit of this area before talking to Eld Ingram, who will then also join everybody else at the campfire. This should be where we hit level 2. We're going to pick up mechanics and diplomacy for our skills this level. Very important. For our ability, I like to pick up Eldritch Aim right here, but honestly it's not super important yet. We can and will be respecking later. Now from here we move up on the world map to a mandatory event at the fork here. It is possible to help these guys lift their wagon and steal from the little strongbox that they have at the same time, but do be careful. It is possible to sort of fail some checks here and get into combat with these guys. We're basically just looking to help them, steal from their strongbox, and then leave, which we should pass with the skills we have. Now we're going to head up to Port Maje, which is a mandatory area where we're going to see a scene of the governor trying to calm everybody down because a giant Audra statue as part of the story just went through here. But we're not too concerned with that, but we'll get to it in a moment. We are, however, going to come over here and talk to Rinko. He has a little quest that we're going to get involved in for the XP, but it's important to mention not to bother looting anything in this town just yet. Mostly to save you some time if you happen to fail the next stealth section, but also because picking up any food right now would mean it would rot before we could get a chance to use it. So we're going to leave it where it is and come back for it later so the timer doesn't start. Then we're going to go to the governor's mansion, talk to him again, where we'll make a deal to go investigate the nearby Digsite. This is where we should hit level 3. We're going to do mechanics and diplomacy again, followed by monastic unarmed training. That's basically so we can use our standard fist attacks if need be, though again it's probably not going to come up before we wind up respecing anyway, mostly just to get into the habit of it. Now from here we go to the jail to pick up another quest from the jailer about some thugs on the next street over in town, and we can also realize that somebody here is locked up and would like our help. Now from here we're going to exit the city by interacting with the world map, and we're going to head straight over to the Digsite from here. We're actually on a pretty strict time limit thanks to the Aethys God challenge. If we don't do this quick, we will run out of time and game over ourselves. We cross the bridge here though and move to Wakara Pass, which is in the way of the Digsite. This is a text event. We're going to search the area, disarm the trap we find, then we're going to search for Zareps, sneak closer to observe, and then scatter them with magic. This is going to give us a bunch of rewards while also meaning we don't have to actually fight any of them. And then we can make our way straight to the Engwithian Digsite. Now this is where it gets tricky because we're going to loot basically everything while avoiding all of the enemies. The enemies are all mostly clustered up in the center of the map, but it does pay to know where they are here. But as you can see, I kind of go around the edges of the map, picking up all of the various alchemy ingredients we'll be using. But once you go down that ladder, it's important to start using stealth pretty quickly. Now if you interact with all the statues, you'll get some money, by the way. But basically avoid the enemies and loot as much as you can while we go to the bottommost area of this little arena and into the main area here. Now we're going to very specifically follow an exact path here, which you can kind of see on screen. Basically going to the bottom part. This is because this avoids most of the enemies. Once we pass by the little circular puzzle, which we'll come back to, we're going to drop into stealth because now comes the tricky stealth section. The first part is easy. We just sneak right around the corner up to the stairs, and then we wait for the little mushroom guy to get out of our way before we sneak past the next room, which should be fairly clear. But once we are in the corridor with this wisp, this is where we need to activate our Thieves' Putty. This is going to give us increased stealth, which we are going to need to sneak past the large amount of enemies in this next room. The exact pathing of these guys can be a little confusing, but basically once they start to move towards the left of the room, that's when you want to go, and you want to keep moving quickly until you're past them, which will bring us to the room where we need to be for the story. This is where we're going to interact with the Audra pillar, where we don't really have much say in what happens. We just interact with Aethys and we're on our way. You want to move quickly though, so we don't lose the timing on our Thieves' Putty. Now from here, we're moving south very, very quickly right back through that room we were just in, but we're going to sneak past the guys we just did, which is again kind of difficult, but as they are again moving left towards the other side of the room, we want to sneak past them. If you're quick and you use the Thieves' Putty, you should be okay. And then after that, you're mostly in the clear and you want to sneak back to that puzzle we were just at, because now we can start actually looting it. Once we get to the puzzle, all you've got to do is light the 2 braziers and then click the top left, bottom left, followed by the top right circle, and that will put the fire out, and then you can steal from the chest there, which will give us some items we're probably going to sell later. From there, we basically just follow our way back to the exit, looting anything we happen to have missed the first time through, and then we can head back out to the dig site. Now that we've done the main story here, the enemies will be gone from this main area, but we're not done yet because we're going to then go around and loot everything else. We're also going to interact with the people here to advance the main story further, which is normally where you'd pick up Aloth, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to loot absolutely everything in this main area. And then once that's done, we're going to start moving into the other little zones that you can go in, like the offices and the rooms and stuff, and we're going to disarm all of the traps we find in, say, the training hall, while also looting things from the luminous Adra pool, but do be in stealth when you go into the Adra pool. There are enemies there. The training hall on both sides has a bunch of traps we can disarm for XP. We want to get as many of those disarmed as we can while avoiding the skeletal patrols. One of them in particular kind of wanders the room, and we're going to wait for them to move so we can disarm more and more of the traps while being as safe as we can, but we're going to get that XP. And if we've done everything right, we should hit level 4 right about here. Again, mechanics and diplomacy, and then we're going to pick up withdraw and combusting wounds. For our weapon proficiency, we're going to pick up club, and then we're going to keep it trucking from there, disarming more of those traps as I mentioned. But once all of that's done, we can finally leave the dig site and head back to Port Maje. Now, before we head back into the main part of town, the harbor, we're going to go to Goreki Street. This will cause us to enter from the sort of south side of the map. We're going to stealth our way through, because if we don't, enemies will activate here, but we're going to stick close to the building, make our way through the pathway past the ghost, where we can then talk to Ilari. Ilari is who the jailer wanted us to stop. We are going to use our diplomacy options here, which we can't see, mind you, to basically just pay the guy off and make him leave without fighting. This will cause the area to clear out, and then from here we can go around and loot the place. And you can equip any items here that you find if you happen to want to do that, but from here we're actually going to leave this area and then go to the Hawana outpost just outside of the main city. We're going to, again, stealth and steal basically everything we can around here without getting caught. Do not get caught. They will attack you if you do. But while we're here, we're also going to talk to the Hawana woman who attacked Rinko, Mokeha, and talk her into giving Rinko's money back using our, again, diplomacy skills. Do keep in mind she's only available to talk to during the day though, so if you're showing up at nighttime for some reason, you will have to wait before you can talk to her. We're going to go into our inventory and take Rinko's money rather than give it back to him, and then from there we're going to head back to the harbor itself. Now, straight away you want to go into the jail to turn that stuff into the jailer, and this is also where we're going to take the opportunity to free the guy in the cell. Now, if you are lucky, the jailer will be across the room and you can picklock this guy out of jail for free. If you are not, don't risk it and just instead pay the jailer and you can free him anyway. We are going to need him as a crew member though, that's why we're doing that. But finishing that up should actually put us at level 5 now. From here, again, mechanics and diplomacy, then we're going to pick up spirit weapon. At this point, this is where we're actually going to go around Port Maje and start looting absolutely everything. Basically anything we can get our hands on. We're going to go around the outside, loot all of the various containers and everything, and then we're going to go into the inn, do a small side quest there, and do the same thing. The goal here is twofold. One, we want the items in general, but having done all of this, we can also get enough food for the journey when we leave Port Maje without having to pay for it. Our ship and our sailors will need food. Now, when you go into the inn, again, try to steal everything you can without getting caught, but the innkeeper will ask you to go upstairs and kick some people out of a room up there. It's also possible to pick some locks up here and get into some rooms and steal some stuff. Just make sure not to be caught. There is some valuable stuff up here, including some bombs. But once you go to the room that is occupied, just talk the captain into leaving. There's a few different ways to do that. A lot of the conversation options will get him to leave. Just, don't start combat and you'll basically be good. But after that, go collect your reward from the innkeeper and then continue exploring in town. We're going to make our way to the Aethosians camp here, which is where we're going to meet Wainglith, and is typically where you'd pick up Jodi if you wanted to for a companion, but she's going to give us a blessing and we're going to hold our hand over the flame that she offers us as long as possible. This is going to give us another buff that is going to give us bonuses to our skills, which is what we're going to use for a while. Then we can go talk to Rinko and turn that quest in. We're also going to steal everything from his house while we're here that we can, even pickpocket people if possible. Now, we obviously can't give his money back because we took it, and that was the plan there, but that's fine. And then from there, pick up anything else in town you haven't, and then go talk to the governor again. We're going to steal everything from the governor's mansion now. Once that's done, talk to the actual governor, and once we relay all that information to him, he should help us with our ship back on the beach, which is what is going to get us sailing. Then we're going to travel back to the beach to do just that. But before we do that, very important, we're going to go talk to the innkeeper. We're going to hire some sailors. We're going to hire Venisi, Hema, Little Luca, and then we're going to head down to the beach again. We don't have to do anything at the beach. They will just sort of auto free your ship here. You'll get a little cutscene and then you'll be on your actual ship. But before we actually sail anywhere, we want to get everything set up. So go into ship management, make sure all your food is actually being used. If you have any of the equipment for your ship that comes with one of the editions of the games, go ahead and use it, but it's not super important. But the gist is to get your sailors sorted out, as well as your food and your water sorted out. That way you don't have a mutiny on your hands from everybody starving to death, and do the best you can. Now, it's important to note that booze takes a really long time to expire, but one of the god challenges here is that all of this food we've got will expire over time. So if you know the rough amount of time each item will last for, that's great. Hardtack and water lasts an extremely long time, and booze lasts a long time as well. Food is typically the thing you have to worry about the most. But that is our first major leg of the journey done, but we're only just getting started, really, because then we have the next section of the game, which is sailing basically from where we are to a few different places before heading to Neketaka. Now, this is where things can get a little tricky here, because quite frankly, we just need to know where we're going. The map is going to be obscured, which is normal, but obviously for a mode like this, where we are up against a time limit, it's important to know where you're going. Now, I'll give you some general tips here, but the more knowledge you have of where you are, the better. Basically, we're going to sail slightly southwest of Port Maje, or where we just were basically, past the next island we see, but we're going to at some point be accosted by a Principe ship. This is typically where we would pick up another companion, but it also starts the Principe quest line, which is to kill the person who attacked us at the beginning of the game. That's important. We're going to need that quest in those locations. We have to finish that quest line. Now, once we get to the second island past Port Maje, so from Port Maje, you go slightly, ever so slightly southwest past the first docking island you get to. And then once you hit the second island, kind of in that direction, while trying to avoid any ship encounters you get, you'll sail kind of along that line past its dock. Now, once you pass that dock, you're going to take a sharper turn to the southwest, past a little itty-bitty chain of islands that kind of looks like a little archipelago, and then we're going to sail right to a third island. It's going to look more like a deserted area, that is to say a desert wasteland. We're going to move from here up to the north of this island so we can enter a ruin there. Basically, what we're going to do in this ruin is move through and, using the stats and the levels we've already gained, disarm as many of these traps as possible. You cannot disarm all of them, and you need to be extremely careful with where you're moving. But we're going to move through here, disarm all these traps, which, as I mentioned earlier, is going to give us XP. Also, probably worth a mention here that anytime we disarm a trap, we also pick that trap up, which is going to be helpful later. We always want to have some traps in our inventory. Now, this takes a minute because there's a lot of them, quite frankly, and we want to get as many of them as we can. So, take your time, disarm all these traps. It's not a big deal. Once we've got all of those traps disarmed, all of the items we can find from the few lootable areas, we're actually just going to go ahead and leave. You will get the opportunity to name the island as you leave as well. Do your thing. Once we're back on our ship, though, we're actually going to sail up to Fort Deadlight, but do keep in mind, your food and everything. Now, having talked to that Principe guy earlier, he'll have marked Fort Deadlight on our map, so we can just choose that as a location from known locations and sail there that way. But if you do that, you need to be very mindful of where the storms are. Storms normally sort of travel around in a pretty set deterministic path, so it is something you can sort of memorize, but be aware of them. This is where you're going to start running into them. Then we're going to sail up to Fort Deadlight. We are going to row to the shores under the cover of night, and then once we are there, we're going to interact with the wall, use a grappling hook that we should have picked up from everything we were looting in Port Maje, up to the window, as well as the beach area. I'm pretty sure the grappling hook comes from the beach, actually, but nonetheless, you should have it if you were looting everything. We're going to throw that up to the window and get into Fort Deadlight this way. Now, what we're going to do from here is steal as much as we can from Fort Deadlight, while also completing the quest we have here, which is to kill that guy who attacked us in a pacifist manner. Now, we still need to avoid enemies at times, especially when we're in places we're not supposed to be, which is why in this initial room we're going to unlock the door for the XP, but we're not going to go through it. We're going to go through the other door up to the forge. Loot everything in the forge, but do not go up to the balcony. Lamond here in this area will offer you a deal. We're not going to go through with that deal, but we actually are going to go to where he would have shown us anyway. Loot everything in the room and then move slightly down the hallway. This is going to reveal a secret path via a lantern you can interact with. Stealth your way through this hallway while looting everything all the way to the other end of it. This is going to bring us to a secret shrine of Skane. We're going to loot a secret area in here for a ring. area. This ring is actually very important. It gives us a bunch of extra diplomacy. We're going to be using that at times, but after we've got that, we can go back through the forge and back into the sort of underground area we were just in. From there, we can run across the bridge, the area right over the ship, all the way to the next area, looting everything as we go again. And you do want to stealth before you get into this next room here, because this is where you'll start running into patrols and whatnot. But unlock the wooden door to the south of this room after looting everything, and then we're going to move through that. Our next goal is to go just past the stairs that lead up to the fort proper and down that side hallway here. We're then going to go to the right through this opening towards what is the prison area. Lamond has actually asked us to free some people down here, and we're going to do that sort of. We're going to move through this prison area, watching out for the jailers as we go. We don't want to run into them, but then we're going to pick the locks on all of the jail cell doors. Namely, the skeleton in one of them is going to have boots of stealth. We're going to immediately put those on and make us even better at sneaking. And then we're going to free Lamond's people. Don't worry about the jailers, they won't do anything here. Then we're going to go right back out the way we came, but go down the hallway instead of where we came from, and loot everything else down here. Once that's done, you can come back up and talk to Lamond. He will have shown you probably what you've already gotten, which is the secret passage, but we get some experience for having done all that. And then that should actually put us at level 7. I forgot to mention level 6 earlier. I'll have to put a note up on that on screen. But it was, unsurprisingly, mechanics and diplomacy yet again. Again, we're probably going to respec anyway, so it's not wildly important what abilities we get, but level 6 we should have picked up Merciless Gaze, and then here at level 7, you can pick up like Consecrated Ground as well as Console Hotch Draining Touch. Moving right along though, we can then go back to the dungeons from the forge, which is where we're going to take those stairs up that we passed just a little bit earlier. This is going to put us into the fort proper, and we're going to go from here straight up to court, or the sort of main dining hall. This is actually where we were in the back hallway just a bit ago, but from here go around the room, looting everything we can, of course, but make sure you also talk to Merc, who's going to give us some tips about drawing Captain Benwith, who we're here to kill, down to the main room. We're going to have to get some rum, and then once that's done, we got to go back down into the dungeons to talk to the cook. But the main thing we want to know is the information about the rum right now. Now, you can also go ahead and rig a bomb to the piano here, which is what we're going to do to kill Benwith passively anyway, but you can do that now or later. Just make sure it's done before he gets down to the room. From there, we're going to go head back out into the sort of main area where all the pirates are, and then we're going to go around and start looting everything. Avoid the lefternmost stairs up. You'll get sort of encountered up there, and if you do it too many times, they'll just attack you. But on the right side of this sort of main area, we've got a merchant as well as a few people to talk to. We're going to steal from the merchant as well as loot everything on this side of the map. The merchant actually has a useful belt that we can steal from all that stuff we did. Stealing the inventory right around here, that belt is pretty useful. You can go ahead and equip that if you want, but not wildly important. We're going to wind up selling it in the long run. Now from here, we're going to sneak up the rightmost stairs to the eastern ramparts. There is a guard right here, so you need to do it in stealth and pretty quickly. Now from here, we're going to sneak across the ramparts to the chest in the sort of middle of where the ramparts are. We do have to watch out for a wandering guard, but the rum is in that chest across the way there. So once we have that rum, we sneak our way back down to the main courtyard, where we're then going to take that rum to Merc in the court area, or the sort of bar. Once we give the rum, that starts a little party. But in order to draw Benwith down, we got to do one more thing, which is steal food he likes from the dungeons. So we're going to go back to the dungeons now, and a bunch of people are going to leave as we do that, so we can pretty freely walk up to the part of the map that we have not explored and talk to the cook up here. We're going to ask her simply for the food that Benwith wants, and then we can loot everything in here as well. Now, once that's done, we go back up to court, bring the stew to Merc, which is going to kick off the party proper, which is when Benwith will come down. We want to have rigged the piano by now, so that when Benwith actually comes down, he goes to play the piano and immediately blows himself up. Thus, we've completed the quest and we haven't had to fight anybody. We're then going to go ahead and leave the court area, and we're about to leave this area in total, but do keep in mind there are still some areas you don't want to go because you will in fact get attacked still, like such as up on the ramparts or up on the top level of the court area. There are still guards around, they will still try to attack you, but the sort of open courtyard area can now be freely explored, including that lefternmost portion we left alone previously. We're going to do that, exactly that, explore and go loot everything over there. And then once all that's done, we're actually going to leave. Make sure you set up your ship and everything before you leave. All the food we just picked up from looting everything in Fort Deadlight, we want to get all that sorted out. Move all the wasted stuff and basically make sure we're ready to sail. Now we're going to sail from Fort Deadlight to the other area that was revealed by the pirate earlier, which is Dunnage. Dunnage is the seat of the Principe. We're going there to basically tell the guy who told us about Benwith that we killed Benwith, which is going to give us the next quest in that quest line, which we're going to need to do. We're going to do that when we go to Neketaka. But there's also some important stuff to do around Dunnage proper. Again, just make sure you don't run into any storms on the way there. We are once again going to loot absolutely everything we can, and we're going to complete a few basic quests while we're here, but loot everything in the docks area before heading to the world map, or the sort of city map, I guess, to head to the King's Coffin. This is an inn in town where we're going to talk to some people, pick up some of those quests I mentioned. There's a little cutscene where somebody gets killed here. So loot that guy's body and then talk to the barkeep or disarm the trap behind the bar if you prefer. You likely won't be able to steal out of it though. Do keep that in mind. Just too many people watching, frankly. But up the stairs to the left, there is a sick guy here who's going to give us a little quest to find him a cure. We're going to get XP for doing that, so we're going to. But up the stairs to the right is something I actually forgot to do on my run, but it is important. There's a sort of Lady of the Night up there that you can sleep with, and doing so will actually give you a bonus to your skills as well. That's going to save us some headache when we get to Neketaka. I had to respec because I forgot to do this, so it's not like make or break, but it's important you do that for the bonus that you get from doing that. Now, while we're here in the inn, this is as good a place as any to drop some of the equipment we've been picking up. We'll have picked up all sorts of armor and weapons, and you can sell most of it at this point. I recommend hanging on to the uniques for the most part right now, but you can sell a lot of the basic junk we've been holding on to. We don't need any of the scrolls or the drugs, but do remember that we do need to keep at least a good portion of traps. I wouldn't recommend selling more than whatever leaves you with 5 of any individual trap type. And remember not to sell any tools out of your inventory. We'll be using those as well. While we're here doing this, we actually may want to go ahead and hire a few more sailors while we're at it. Specifically, 5 Glass, Lindreth, and Big Mouth. And then of course you want to put them in the positions that give you the biggest bonuses to those individual things, but it's not wildly important we do that right this second. From there we're going to leave the King's Coffin and go to the Radiant Court. This is where we're going to pick up the other items that we need for the most part to heal that guy back at the King's Coffin, while also, again, looting everything. While we're here though, in order to get the items we need, you do have to talk to one of the people there that will explain what we need to heal that guy, which involves just getting some items from around town. One of them we buy from a merchant here, and then we got one of them from looting everything at the docks, and then you can try to steal from the stores and stuff while you're at it. But after this, we then have to head back to the King's Coffin to buy the last ingredient from the barkeep here before going up and talking to that guy and completing that little quest. Then we can head up to the Balefire Beacon, which is like the main area where we can talk to the quest giver from earlier that sent us to kill Benwith. Again, we can go ahead and loot everything that's here, but we need to talk to Captain Ferrante. Basically just go along with what he says and he'll give you the next quest in the chain, which is finding information about a ghost ship. And then he's going to do that, of course, by having us find and talk to somebody in Neketaka, which we'll get to in that section. But make sure to loot this guy's room. You should be able to find some gold there, which we're definitely going to need. And then we can go ahead and leave. Upon leaving Dunnage, we'll receive an item from another captain, Captain Aeldis, because we are working with the Principe. Don't worry about this right now, but it will come up later. We're going to side with Captain Aeldis in the little dispute that she's having with Captain Ferrante. From there, we're actually going to go ahead and sail to Neketaka now. You may be attacked by other ships. Try to flee best you can. If it looks like they might destroy you, go ahead and surrender. It's not a huge deal right now, but mostly we want to avoid storms and try not to die on our way to Neketaka. If you hit a storm or you get attacked by an enemy, it's not the end of the world. Just do your best to get through it without just straight up dying, and you should be okay. Once we get to Neketaka, we'll have the chance to fix all of that, and we will be fixing all of that because when we leave Neketaka, it will be in an entirely different ship anyway. On our way to Neketaka, we will also get stopped by the gods who are going to have a story conversation with us, not terribly important for this right now. That will will put you back on your actual deck of your ship though, so go ahead and loot the stuff that's in there while you're at it, because why not? And then we can sail the rest of the way to Neketaka. After this, we should encounter that ghost ship. It'll be a real quick encounter, we don't have to do anything, but it should happen, and then we'll have finally arrived at Neketaka. So, you get accosted when you get to the docks, another little story scene here. Not much we can do about it either way. But once that story scene's over, we're free to explore Neketaka. Now, Neketaka is a very large city, and we have a lot of things to do here before we leave. What's more, a lot of it is still prep work. In fact, by the time we leave Neketaka, we're finally going to be ready to engage in a few encounters, but we're still going to be working primarily on leveling up and gathering up items. But we will cover all of that in part 2, because I think that is long enough for part 1 here, which as you can see is mostly just laying the groundwork for the rest of the run. But with all of that said, I hope you've enjoyed this so far. If you're looking forward to more of it, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, and stick around. I will be releasing the rest of the series with my own footage from my own run, showing people how I did this. But this is our start. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It meant the world to me to finally be able to jump in and complete the ultimate for myself, and getting to share that with other people and hopefully help them do it as well really does mean a lot to me, and I quite frankly couldn't do that without the people who are dedicated enough to watch this video. So truly, thank you so much. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.